Thank you, Yuri. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. So happy that I had to fly yesterday, 15 hours to come here from San Francisco, where I was running the Token Summit on Tuesday, which is the event that I run in New York and in San Francisco. Some of you know me as the author of The Business Blockchain, the first book that came out explaining the business aspects of the blockchain. And since then, that book has been translated in 10 languages. And one of these languages is Russian. And I'm very happy to be here because we are launching the Russian version of my book here at this event. And a few copies will be there outside. So feel free to partake, and I'll come and sign them for you, and then they'll be worth more money after I sign them. I'm also the manager of a blockchain index called WMX, which was launched about 2 months ago. It's a basket of 15 cryptocurrencies. But I'm here today to talk to you about where the blockchain is going in the context of decentralization. There's so much excitement right now in terms of what the blockchain is enabling that we really have to think about it as a disruptive technology. If you do not think and if you do not believe that the blockchain is disrupting everything we are doing today, then you are not thinking far enough about its impact. And the kind of disruption that I'm talking about is really on 3 levels. There is technical disruption, business disruption, and legal disruption. And what's important is that all 3 of them have to come together in order to really achieve the maximum impact for the blockchain. It's important that they come together because if they don't, then you're not really doing what the blockchain is going to enable us to do. For example, many big companies just look at the blockchain on the technical aspect, and they see it as a new kind of database or a new kind of ledger. So they will say, okay, yes, we're going to use the blockchain as a distributed ledger, but we don't want to change our business model. Or there is a limit to what we can use in terms of smart contracts. That is not really using the blockchain to the full extent. At the same time, a lot of business people today now are jumping on the bandwagon and just saying, well, let's do a token. And maybe they haven't thought about the technical implementation. 2 years ago, the crypto engineers were rushing to the market with immature technology. Today, it's the opposite that's happening. It's the business people that are rushing with immature business models that are waiting to be proven. So it's very important to think about all 3 of them coming together. And what a year it has been in terms of the valuation of all of the cryptocurrencies. A year ago, we were at $14 billion. 6 months ago, $100 billion. And this morning, $430 billion. Is this important? To some extent, it is important because it asserts the sovereignty of the cryptocurrencies. But in the grand scheme of things, $400 billion is about half the valuation of the largest company in the world that has the biggest valuation, which is Apple, valued at close to $800 billion. That is still less than 25 of the top market cap of companies that are public in the space. So in the grand scheme of things, that is not a big number. Having said that, we should not be focused on the money aspect of the blockchain. What we should be focused on is the fact that no matter what the numbers are here, what we are doing here is about creating a new system. This is about the creation of a new parallel financial system, a new market, new capabilities that did not exist before. And the best way to do that is not to fight the existing system. The best way to do that is to create this new parallel system. So whether the price of Bitcoin is 10,000 or 16,000 or 1,000, the fundamental story of it does not change. It is here to stay, and it is going to change everything going forward. Why is this so difficult? It is difficult because the blockchain is simultaneously a lot of things. And for the first time in the last 25 years, We now have a technology that parallels and maybe rivals the impact of the web itself. The web had a lot of capabilities underneath it, but the blockchain even has more. The blockchain is a cryptocurrency, is a computing infrastructure, a transaction platform, a decentralized database, a distributed ledger, a development environment, open source software, a financial services market, peer-to-peer networking, trust services layer, all of them at the same time. And that is what makes it difficult to really wrap your head around it if you are new into the space. At the same time, it makes it very challenging and it makes it very exciting to implement these technologies. The big themes going forward, number one is about money, programming money, and all of the products behind it. It's about using tokens as a utility. It's about business process reengineering all over again, changing completely what we were doing. Companies have a lot of processes between them where there are intermediaries today that need to be trusted. What if there was no intermediary that was needed? What if companies could do business with each other directly, with the blockchain as this trust node in the middle? It is not just about transacting money. Money is one form of value. Value is really the biggest theme here. Imagine if we have all kinds of value now being transacted on the blockchain. Imagine if we can prove the truth on the blockchain, because the blockchain is this immutable record. Once you write something on the blockchain, you cannot change it anymore. So we're going to be able to go there and find the truth in a lot of applications and information. Today, we are Googling for information. In the future, we're going to go to blockchain applications to really find out, did this happen? Did this happen at this particular time by this particular person in this particular place? That is what I call the next Google, Google 2.0. Any asset now is going to be liquid. More than half of the assets in the world are not very liquid and are not easily tradable. What if we can now put them on the blockchain? Because the blockchain gives us speed of transactions, gives us a lot of efficiency between clearing and settlement, and we are going to take advantage of it. There are new governance models that are going to be emerging on the blockchain, and these are the big themes to think about. The application areas, today it's about the money. That is why the Bitcoin price is going up, because the Bitcoin is the entry point into all of the cryptocurrencies. It's like the revolving door. If you want to move fiat money into the world of cryptocurrency, in most cases, you are going to start with Bitcoin. That is why it is seeing all this activity on the in and on the out. It is also about having financial products, derivatives, futures, and we're going to see more of them, especially that the banks now are going to start to get into Bitcoin. And I said this last week, I was on CNBC, I said that Bitcoin does not need the banks, but the banks need Bitcoin because they have to create new products, and that's how they will grow. Initially, when Bitcoin came out, the banks said, no, we don't want to touch it because it's running on a public network. Now, Goldman Sachs yesterday announced futures products on Bitcoin. And many of the exchanges, the stock exchanges, not the cryptocurrency exchanges, are going to be supporting this type of cryptocurrency, and not just Bitcoin, but others as well. ICOs, obviously, is disrupting the capital, the venture capital market. There is a lot of talk about this at this conference, and I'll talk about it in a minute. Native assets trading, that's a very important aspect. And we have barely scratched the surface of it. How many of you have dabbled with the CryptoKitties in the last week, which has been taking the blockchain by storm? CryptoKitties is an example of a native asset. When you buy into a CryptoKitty, there is only one, and it is just an asset that is immutable. You cannot duplicate it. It is just one, and it has a life of its own. Imagine if we had multiple assets of this sort that could be traded on the blockchain. Imagine if we can fractionalize ownerships of real estate. Imagine if a building like this one or others could be sold to multiple owners that could have a liquidity that is very simple. That is the future. Let's talk about tokens, because tokens are really the big theme of 2017 and perhaps into 18 as well. A token is really a cryptocurrency with a special purpose. And that special purpose is really a right for an ownership or a right to do something, a right to earn, a right to spend, a right to transact, a right to sell, a right to buy. And that is really what is interesting about tokens. But really, the token is not the important thing. What is important is what the token enables. The token is just a catalyst. And what the token enables is really the creation of a new economy, of a new ecosystem. In the case of Ethereum, for example, it's an ecosystem of developers. In the case of other marketplaces, it's really about creating an economy of buying and selling, of earning and spending. So now you have to be good at understanding what it means to manage this kind of economy. And there's this topic I'm calling tokenomics, which is really about how you design your token. When companies talk to me and email me and they say, we're doing this and that with a token, the first question I ask them is, what will the token do? What is the role of the token? That is so important to figure out very early on. How you distribute your tokens and how you govern and understand the monetary policy behind them. Despite all of the excitement that we have, there is a bit of caution here. It is very possible that everything we are seeing today is in the era of what I call tokens 1.0, which means that we are not yet in the tokens 2.0, which is really going to give us more of the benefits and the more important companies. And that is going to happen later. And the analogy here is Web 1.0 versus Web 2.0. If you think about it, and if you look at the last 22 years of the web, it was really Web 2.0, which started after the crash, after 2002, that gave us the most important and the most significant companies on the web. The Facebook, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, and other companies. Very few companies came from the Web 1.0. Amazon is an exception, as well as eBay, but most of the other companies came into Web 2.0. Why is that? Because we have to really be true to the fundamentals of the blockchain. And if we skip these fundamentals, then we are not really taking advantage of the potentials of the blockchain. Number one, there has to be a removal of a counterparty. There has to be the removal of an intermediary. Or there has to be an infrastructure underneath that is peer-to-peer, because that is really the essence of the blockchain. There has to be some network effects. Network effects means that every time there is a new user that enters the system or enters the network, it adds value to the other users that are already in there. We tend to forget what the meaning of network effects is. And now we have to implement that in the era of decentralized networks. Decentralization has many levels. It is not something that you arrive to from day one. It has to happen in phases. And then finally, there has to be some autonomy in governance. You have to let the smart contracts do their job and face the consequences of whether we make mistakes in building them or whether they are doing their job properly. The acid test for tokens is, what would happen without the token? What if you remove the token? Describe to me the situation. And I often ask, why do you need the blockchain? I'm seeing a lot of projects today that are just being done on the blockchain just because it's trendy. But if you dig deeper and you say, what if I remove the blockchain? Can you do this without the blockchain? If the answer is yes, that model is not very sustainable. We have to see a before and an after. We have to really understand what is it that the blockchain is enabling that was not possible before. That was really the turning moment for the Web 2.0 companies, doing things that we could not do before. With the web, it was the exploiting of the two-way functionality of the web, the user-generated content, where we could write something and automatically it gets published and it becomes valuable and others can read it. And we're not doing that yet with the internet, with the blockchain. I like to say this because it is true. Blockchain is 90% governance and business models, and the rest is 50% of it is technical. I know it doesn't add up, but the analogy is Yogi Berra's famous quote. He was a baseball player in the US, and they asked him about baseball, and he said, well, baseball is 90% mental, and the other 50% is physical. That is the analogy. 3 ways to exploit the blockchain. Obviously, in the first bucket, the old companies trying something new. Yeah, that's possible. That's easy. But that's not really where you get the biggest bang. Then let's move to the next middle layer where we hear of new applications, but applying the old way. So if I hear of, well, we're going to now sell homes on the, we're going to do real estate on the blockchain. But what's the innovation here? Or we're going to now have a marketplace for talent on the blockchain. What's the innovation here? I'm not hearing anything new here. But there is, the most optimal level is when we are creating something new that did not exist before. When we talk about applications like prediction markets that we could not do before. These are the kinds of applications we have to really think about. I'm going to end by just asking a few questions and giving you quick answers as to where I think we are going. If you are getting involved in the blockchain, especially with the token models, do you really understand the economic model behind your token? Do you understand what moves the price of a token? How is it valued? How does the transaction volume affect the market valuation of it? How does the action of users affect it? We are in the very early stages of understanding the economic models behind tokens. Anybody that tells you they understand it is not telling the truth. What is a good token? What is a bad token? What is important about it? Think about that. The token functionality is very important, but it's only the beginning. Doing an ICO is only the beginning. Because, in my opinion, the success rates of the ICOs will not be any better than the success rate of startups. Most startups fail. It's a known fact. I would venture to say that 99% of the ICOs will fail. The success rate of the ICOs will not be any better because many of them are not being mentored by people that have done it before. ICOs are using the advisory label for marketing purposes instead of using advisors as mentors. As soon as the ICO is done, they don't want to talk to the advisors anymore. They want to run on their own. They have enough money in the bank, and they want to figure things out on their own. But ICOs are like startups. They are not going to defy the rules of startup evolution. So let's not forget that. Another question, will decentralized open source protocols be more powerful than their web equivalent? That is still to be proven. We have a number of protocols that are emerging right now for file sharing, for e-commerce, for cloud computing, and they might be the next HTTP and the next version of the web standards that we have. But we need more of them in order for the market to grow. Will decentralization deliver? Decentralization will deliver, but it will deliver in a stepwise manner. It is not something that you can just put into the market at once and drop it and say, now we have decentralization. Like the DAO, that just said, okay, now from day one, we're going to have DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. And look what happened. They made mistakes, and it crashed. It is something you have to earn the right to graduate towards. Will there be a crash? That's the big question everybody asks me, everybody asks themselves, asks other experts. Will there be a crash? How and when? And my answer is that I'm not sure, but what I think is going to happen, there will be a lot of mini crashes. It may not be the same as a 1999, 2000 internet crash, but already right now, suppose the market valuation goes from 340 to 200. Is that a crash or is that a correction? This has already happened. On the way to 340, it has gone up and down many, many times. And every time it goes down, it brings with it a lot of valuation. So what will end up happening is the good tokens will do well, and the bad tokens will not do well. And we will keep going further and further ahead. But we are still in the installation phase of this evolution. And the installation phase is something that happens before the crash. And when the crash happens, typically, then there is a deployment phase and there's prosperity. It could be that maybe when we reach $1 trillion, that might happen, or it could be even more. But it is going to be very volatile on the way up. Will countries create their own cryptocurrency? Russia has talked about that. China has talked about that. It's very possible. But it will not be a fully decentralized, blockchain-like version like the currency that you know of. It won't be like Bitcoin. It won't be like Ether. It won't be like the other currencies we know. It will be their own version with a bit of central control and maybe taking the digital features of the currency. So they will not do it in the way that we think they might do it. How high is the sky and how shaky is the ground? Relating to what I was talking about with the valuations. The sky is not the limit. I remember in 1999, I was there when the web crashed. Everybody thought that the sky was going to be the limit because IPOs were going to the market and everything was going up and up. But everything has a limit, and we should not rush what the blockchain can deliver to us. Anybody who wants to rush it is going to create accidents. It's like driving. How about regulators? It's a big topic. Will they really poke the blockchain in the eye, or will they help it? I think they will do both. But in the long term, it's going to be good. The good ICOs will do well, and the bad ICOs will not do well. Will Wall Street adopt blockchain technology, or will a new system emerge? Both of them are happening right now. We are beginning to see Wall Street and the financial sector adopt cryptocurrency. There used to be a lot of headwinds coming from them. They were resisting it. And despite this resistance, look what has happened so far. Imagine now with less resistance what is going to happen in the future. Is every asset in the world destined to become liquid on the blockchain? The answer is yes. That is the next revolution, is putting assets on the blockchain and allowing anybody to trade them in a way that was not possible before. How about standards? We have the ERC-20 standards, which allowed us to do the ICOs. We have the ERC-721 standard, which allows us to do non-fungible assets on the internet. That's allowed the CryptoKitties to happen, but this was a great example. We need to have some crazy examples before we can get to the more serious ones. Definitely, we need more standards, because standards bring adoption. When something is standard, then you can use it. Many people can use it, and everything goes up in terms of the adoption. Final thoughts to watch for in 2008. The regulators are still trying to wrap their head around what is going on. The blockchain is a global phenomenon, but most regulators operate at the local level. So that is a bit of a challenge for them. But eventually, I expect them to update some regulation. The worst thing they can do is apply the existing regulation to this new thing that is going on right now with the blockchain. Crypto funds, so many crypto funds I hear about all the time being created every day, every week. Soon, there will be more crypto funds than tokens. And I kind of joke about it, but that is going to be a reality. Scalability of blockchains is something to watch for, and it is something that Ethereum and Bitcoin gets criticized for because they cannot handle lots of transactions, but that is something that is being worked on. That is the problem that will be solved in 2018 via many different ways. You don't have to put every transaction on the blockchain. There will be ways to scale horizontally, what is called, whether via side chains and state channels. So watch for those kinds of buzzwords in scaling blockchain applications. I get a bit worried when I hear of better blockchains because of this feature or that feature. it is very difficult to develop a better blockchain. I would rather have better tools for the blockchain that we have today. That is what we need, is better tools, more middleware, and easier ways and languages to work with the blockchains that we have today. On-chain governance is very difficult. Allowing everything to happen on the blockchain for good or for bad is a bit risky right now. So we have to learn it before we can scale it completely. And the role of foundations is something that is also a new era right now. There are not too many foundations that are doing a great job yet, or at least know what job they have to do. But it is something to watch for, because every one of these tokens, or at least many of them, are creating foundations to govern this monetary policy. So we have a lot to learn. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you later on outside.
I would like to remind you, we have a mobile app, you can ask questions, and now we are limited in time, and that's why I would like to ask you one question.
The question came from Roman Lvov, and the question was, do you think the ideas of governments emitting their own cryptocurrencies is sustainable in the near future? So just 2 words about your ideas about, the governments doing their own crypto. Is it a good idea?
Well, it's a good idea if they try to use the full capabilities of the blockchain. And the capabilities of the blockchain is really about less control. So what they have to control now is kind of indirect. If they only use the digital currency aspects of the cryptocurrency, it's only like using maybe 30% of the capabilities. And I hope they do more than that.
Thank you, William. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.